Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. In today's video I'm just going to discuss what I think is a really interesting time at West Ham United. Now obviously we've had a lot of news recently, mostly about Matheus Fernandes, obviously heading to Tottenham. Now that is a decision that I spoke about in yesterday's video if you want to check that out, but just in the aftermath and pretty about just over 12 hours after that news broke from David Ornstein, Fabrizio Romano, all the in the knows. Basically, my thought process on that is not ideal that it's Tottenham, but I do think, and I do stick to and still subscribe to the fact that if he was going to go anyway, it's one of those where if he's going to go and he wants that move, then I think you just got to let it happen, especially if they're willing to cough up the £85 million offer and valuation that we thought Fernandes was. And especially as well when it comes to Manchester United, apparently they offered 70 million with 15 million in add-ons, so it wasn't a guaranteed upfront 85 million. So overall, I think we have to just, swallow our medicine a little bit on this one and just kind of go, do you know what? Would you rather the money, or would you rather it be less money and go to a club that isn't Tottenham? Overall, if you're using your West Ham hat and helping us progress forward in the longer run, the money is what is necessary. Now it has come out today as well that we didn't do this offer for PSR reasons, and we are well clear of the threshold to be in any kind of trouble, so that's also good. But what we can do to break down all of the news and little tidbits that's going on in the West Ham world, if you guys give me a little favour to put in the like, comment and subscribe button. Your guys' support has been absolutely amazing recently. It generally means a lot to me that you guys are joining me as we build up to the season in the Championship. So for me, it's very tricky to know what to discuss at the minute, because there's also a lot of tidbits, but there's not a lot of footballing news as such. It's hard to title and do thumbnails and stuff at the minute because there's a little bit of everything going on. Obviously we need to talk about the situation with the shares. Obviously, if you guys are aware, David Sullivan had an option to buy the gold shares at a reduced rate, I believe, and that expired at midnight. So that is no longer going to happen. It is believed Kretinsky is set to increase his shares officially, so that will be incredible. What needs to be said as well is obviously there's a lot of public fans who, I believe it's Sparta Prague, Kretinsky owns over in the Czech League. They've warned West Ham fans about what it's like under a Kretinsky reign as such. And I think we do need to listen to that. I do think it's important that you listen to what those fans have to say. But what I'd also suggest is to Kretinsky, and there's not me trying to belittle the Czech League at all in my opinion, but the prospect of owning West Ham is quite a good one. It's quite a lucrative deal to have. It's quite a decent club to own. And I know obviously within Czechia and all of that, Prague is a huge club, right, both of them. But, Prague's also an amazing city as well. But I do think that Kretinsky is very firmly planted his flag within the UK, obviously owns the Royal Mail and all that sort of stuff. So I do foresee him investing in West Ham. I also think as well, at the same time, we've also got the interim CEO, Krim Varani, who's doing some amazing things. I also believe as well he's given more free rein under this ownership structure compared to the previous one. I think, the whole new badge thing would not be happening under the old regime. I just can't foresee and believe that. And so what it then becomes is this weird amalgamation where we're, as football fans, sort of waiting for the transfer window to get started, but it's not going to get started because realistically the World Cup's a thing. I do think a lot of the players we want to sell are currently at the World Cup. Now, that's not to say you can't get deals done, but you'd have to be very, 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 very sure you want that player, and also the player definitely wants you. Because Elliot Anderson for Man City was sort of a no-brainer transfer. Yes, even though you could say Elliot Anderson at the World Cup, I do think that was easy in negotiations. I don't think that took a lot of time. Whereas a player like Aaron Wan-Bissaka to Everton, for example, I think he'd want to assess his options. I think he'd want to speak to David Moyes. I think he'd want to figure out what's going on there. Same thing with Somerville. I don't think that Somerville, it's not the same thing for Somerville. The club's being linked to teams like Roma. I think Liverpool have currently entered the race, which I can see it. I really can see Somerville to Liverpool. One of my best mates is a Liverpool supporter, and he flat out does not really like Somerville, so I don't think he's too up for that transfer himself. But overall, I would say I do think it's important we just kind of hold firm a little bit on these things, especially in the transfer window. I think it is important to just breathe and just wait and see what happens. It's a tough one, isn't it? Because I made a video going back a month now or so. I know my video's been so inconsistent about how we sort of just need to just not read into the small print on things, and that includes the Jarrod Bowen situation, Jarrod Bowen Aston Villa situation. I don't know what to think of this. Obviously, it comes from Andy Goldstein on TalkSport, who doesn't really do transfer news. This is why I think it's thrown people off a little bit, because he's like categorically planted his flag. This will happen. Trust me. This is not a wind up. This is just me being incredibly honest. So you sit there and you think, okay, you doubt you'd go on to radio and say something with that much conviction if it wasn't true. And also Goldstein, yes, he's obviously from, I think he's from East London, but he's a United supporter, so he's also got no dog in the fight. He's not a Villa fan, he's not a West Ham fan. So like realistically, it's a weird transfer to say this is definitely categorically correct if it isn't. But what I would say is that the other in the nose from the West Ham side of things and the Aston Villa side of things, I think we would have heard from them first. This is not me trying to dispute Goldstein. I quite like TalkSport personally. I know it's not for everyone. I know some people get a bit wound up by the characters that are on there, and I can for sure see that and respect that. But for me, I just sit there and I go, do you know what? It's all about engagement. I'm not saying that Goldstein's lying. I'm fairly sure he must be convinced this transfer's happening. But what I would say is, from just someone that's obviously sat and watched a bunch of football content and, I'm not in the know by any means, but I also feel like I know how the ecosystem works now. I have a really good feel for when I think a transfer will happen to when it doesn't, compared to when I first started the channel, where I was just, spouting a new bit of news that came out, like, oh my god, this is happening. I think just breathe, because I don't think as well it would be that easy as, Bowen to Villa, done. Because they're all going to have to come up to 50 million, and before you say, Bowen 50 million, we say 85 million for Fernandes, we got it. We're not going to get rid of Jarrod Bowen that easily. I think he's still got 4 years left in his contract, I think. Is it 4 years? I think it was till 2030, wasn't it? I remember that picture with him and Tim Stuyton with a Bowen 2030 on it. So, we're in no rush to sell. His age isn't fantastic in terms of spending 50 million. Like, realistically, how many years are you going to get for him? 2, 3 at the top level. And there's not me trying to, talk down to Jarrod Bowen either. I just think this is one of the transfers that really does help us. Like with the Fernandes and Tomáš ones, we are literally powerless. You can even add Malik Juff in there if you want. I don't think he's on the level of those two yet. I actually think Juff could do with the season of the Championship. I would be shocked if a huge team came in for him personally, especially in England. Maybe he goes back out on the continent. I don't know. But what I would say is, for Bowen, his age is a really useful tool for us in terms of the negotiations, because we can sit there, we can go, do you know what, 50 million, and teams, realistically, would you want to pay that on an outward scale? If you said to anyone, Bowen 50 million, they would laugh your head off. But it's worth 50 million to us. If West Ham get promoted, and if Bowen stays, it will most likely be on the back of Jarrod Bowen being at West Ham. Let's not mess about, let's not joke around. That is a likely situation that we'll be in if Bowen's here. So I only say that because I feel like it's tough to know how to react to all this news and how to vet it. I think it's just overall, it's one of those things where we just have to sit and wait. Obviously we're being linked to some players as well, but it's obviously very much preliminary links at the minute, just trying to wait and see how much we clear the decks. I think overall we just have to wait and see. I think the transfer stuff's going to come after the World Cup for us. Not that we're trying to get a lot of World Cup people in. I think it's more about just see who's around. I think Areola and Todibo are definitely off. I'd add Wan-Bissaka into that camp as well. So there's 4 players gone. Obviously then the only winger left is Jarrod Bowen, but you could argue that, or La Madrid I suppose, will be a West Ham player. But you could also add Maxwell Cornet into there. I do think if Maxwell Cornet is to have any kind of resurgence at West Ham, it will be in the Championship. I only say that because I don't know what his value will be. I think we'll let go of Fulkrug. I think Ward-Prowse is also gone as well. So it's going to be an interesting time, I think, to just see what we do and how we feel about our position in all this, and it's tough, isn't it? Also, in a statement yesterday confirming Tomáš Souček will be staying at West Ham United. Now, I think this was obvious after he picked up his injury, mainly because no one can sign him in the transfer window. I think he'll be out for a few months. But overall, the statement was really nice and really well written. I don't think it was, I'm staying at West Ham because I'm injured. I think it would have stayed either way. But I think, you know, the way he said that on his mind has been West Ham the whole time since his injury, I can't believe that. I think he's that kind of character. And I think this was another easy keep for West Ham anyway, not only because it's Souček and he's a lovely character, but also it's the last year of his contract. So what would be the worst case scenario we say to Souček? We're going to keep you, then you go at the end of the season. It's up to you. Thank you very much for the years of service. You know, because we're not going to have much transfer fee for him. Like, we're not going to get anything, so we may as well keep him, because in Championship he will be a danger to a lot of players, to a lot of teams. He will cause teams issues. So overall, I think Souček staying at West Ham is great for all parties, but I was never really worried that he wouldn't. I am genuinely sending him the most, you know, as much love as I can. Genuinely, he is one of the nicest people I've ever seen put on a West Ham shirt. He's one of the most determined people I've ever seen put on a West Ham shirt. And it just is a little bit, it's just awful, isn't it, what happened there? You know, he's had a really tumultuous time with the Czech Republic, you know, and in terms of representing his own country. That was also mentioned in the statement. He's going to take some time to think about it. He doesn't want to rush into a decision. But overall, you can tell that what has been going on with him internationally has affected him. He's losing the captaincy, all of that stuff. It's really not been good for him mentally. You can tell he's a little bit, I think, a little bit crestfallen by if what I'm reading is correct. He just doesn't sound like the Souček that we know and love. You know, that positive, happy, potato salad, smiley man. And it is really sad. I do hope he comes back up, you know, even stronger, which I'm sure he will mentally. I'm sure he'll dig in when he gets the opportunity to for West Ham and going forward in his footballing career. But I do think we just need to send him all the love we can possible. And what I will say is I don't think it's fair that some fans are going, all right, now Souček's planted his flag in West Ham. Where are you, Bowen, Castellanos, Mavropanos? Like, let's just chill. Because also I don't think the likes of Bowen, Mavropanos, even Tati, like a lot of sort of people too deliver big statements on social media. I mean, Bowen barely uses social media. Souček's done it in the past a lot. Like, you know, when he's putting his book, whenever he's got an issue, he will do a big statement. Bowen's not the sort of person to do that. So I think let's just chill. Let's not put pressure on any of these boys, because they don't know. Bowen at this point cannot say he's staying at West Ham United, because if a big deal came through, if Villa did actively come, he'd probably want to chase that deal. And we should let him try and play Champions League football. I don't see this as a bad thing. So I think we just have to chill, pump the brakes a little bit on expecting other players to follow suit from Tomáš Souček. But that's just my opinion. But let me know your opinion down below on everything I discussed today. Make sure you leave a like, comment and subscribe. I'll see you guys later. Take it easy. Bye-bye.